He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast View. We have a terrific show today as we continue to celebrate the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi a better place to live, work, and play. Mayor Billy Hughes from Gulfport is in the first segment. And then Senator Jeremy English from District 51, a coastal Mississippi leader, a new bright young star here in coastal Mississippi, representing us so well. Look forward to talking to him in the second segment. Anyway, let's turn to Mayor Hughes. How are you doing, Billy?
Hey, we're doing as well as we can under the circumstances, which is pretty good.
Yeah, so we got a lot to talk about. Aquarium, COVID, budget, lots to talk about. But before we do, our friend Robert St. John posted something yesterday that really got me thinking. Here's the question he asked. What would you attempt to do if you knew you couldn't fail? I mean, a lot of things came to mind with me. Cure cancer, restores vision to the blind, develop a political system in America that could actually solve some problems. A lot of things went, and that would be, I actually went on to say that's the first day. But what does it make you think of? What's your passion if you were to have that opportunity?
Well, you're quite ambitious, and of course you and I too would probably go on tour with one of the big hair bands from the 80s. But outside of that, you curing COVID, curing cancer, all those things, come to mind, and anything that would make a difference. But I think a lot of us are wired that way anyway. But it's a great question to ask, and I think, Ricky, it leads to another question. A challenge for ourselves. If we think there's something we can do, there's an old saying that you become what you think of most of the time. And so if you focus on that, you figure out how to get there. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but it's that journey. And so I think Robert's point may be, if you try it, whether you fail or not, or if you couldn't fail, why don't you go ahead and launch? Take that leap. And I think a lot of us have learned, as we get older, that sometimes where you think you're going is not where the Lord wants you. And he's in control, but you learn things along the way. And personally, probably the best example I have is actually having served 20 years in the Senate, but run statewide and lost lieutenant governor's race a number of years ago. Some folks thought that was the end of the world, may have been, but no, it was probably the best thing for me that never happened. But had I not tried and gone after that, I wouldn't have probably landed where I was, and so coming home was a huge opportunity for me. And then being able to serve at the local level, that door opened. And so it's a lot of it's how you look at it, but we've got to go ahead and try and almost count on failure to a degree, because every time we fail, we either learn from our mistakes or find a different path on how to get to where we need to be to make that difference, Ricky.
Yeah, so interesting. Looking at your story, and we'll also make this comment and we'll move on to COVID and then some of the more important things to talk about. But so interesting watching your path. And when we had the extended Coast View session together, we had a chance to really talk about this in detail. But you think about your years in the legislature, and then this opportunity to run for statewide office, as you brought up, but the chance to go around the state and talk to people and understand how coastal Mississippi fits into the rest of the state and what their perception of us is and all of that. It was all of that. All those experiences were a great precursor to being mayor today, wasn't it?
It was, and having been able to share that experience with Paula and the kids at a very pivotal time in our lives, we made friends across the state. And I thought I had a great appreciation for the state being in the Senate, but really traveling and touching folks and people believing in you and wanting to help that really didn't know you that well, and really embraced your vision. And it turns out, being in that race, even win or lose, the subject matters and things we talked about continued to move forward, and were embraced by Lieutenant Governor Reeves and then others. And so that we continue to at least have the platform to talk about things that are important to Mississippi. And there's so many things we have in common. Today's world, we get everybody's looking for reasons for outrage instead of focusing on the good in people, the good in things, and the positives that we have going for us. This COVID situation is horrible. And it's put restrictions and inconveniences on us that nobody wants to have to deal with. Certainly those of us in public office, we didn't sign up for this, but here it is, and we've got to make decisions on, to a great degree, incomplete information.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but people have faith in you, and you have to return that by listening and trying to respond. And so that was a grand experience, and we came away with better relationships and more relationships and a better understanding that I think even in failure, we grew from it.
Yeah. For all those reasons, you would have made a great lieutenant governor. I really think that. Hey, so let's do this. Let's go ahead. I'm sorry, Billy.
God had another plan, and I'm good with it.
He did. He did. And look where you are today. So here we are in this COVID situation, made worse by all the lies and conspiracy theories on social media. At the end of the day, it really comes down to a simple set of tools that we've got to combat this as of now. So let's talk a little bit about the latest from the city and what your thoughts are.
Well, we found that nobody's immune to this, and fortunately, it's the statistics are concerning, but fortunately, it's not a high mortality disease unless you have these underlying situations. But everybody is at risk, but it's the COVID is not playing by the rules. When it got hot, it was supposed to go away like the flu does, but it continues to spread, and right now we're seeing spikes. So we are being forced into putting in place measures that we're not happy about. Nobody is, but just the simple act of wearing a mask, when you go out. And you shouldn't have to have government tell you what to do in this sense. But the fact of the matter is, we're putting each other at risk by not wearing just a simple face covering. And so it's something that's very important, and we have to raise this awareness because of the spikes we're seeing. We're hoping we come out of it. Everybody's been warning about a second wave. We don't know if we're in a second wave or just a resurgence of the first, but the fact of the matter is this is very invasive, and it's going to be difficult. And if we thought the lockdowns were hard, if we don't stop this spread, this spike that we're experiencing now, I don't know what we're going to be forced into, but we're going to have to make decisions. While we're watching the stats, the main thing we're talking about is watching hospitals and hospital beds and how many of those. So if they get filled up with COVID patients that will likely live after 2 weeks of treatment and being on vents, the problem is, and we've talked about this before, is when you and I go in when we got a heart attack or a stroke or whatnot, there's not going to be any place for us. And that's the high mortality stuff that we're going to start to see the COVID component impacting heavily. We've been very fortunate on this coast, but the fact of the matter is, and we're seeing overflows in other regions. Guess what they're doing? They're transporting other patients when they run out of beds to hospitals that have bed space, and before we know it, it's all going to be allocated. So this is a very serious situation that we can't take lightly, and make recommendations or maybe put in place measures that are going to require people to comply. But the key is individual responsibility. And businesses saying, a lot of businesses saying, look, we want y'all to tell us to do it. We want to do it, but we need the government, we need you guys to tell us, so they're not mad at us. So whatever we have to do or need to do, we're going to try to find a path to keep our community safe.
Jeremy English made a really good point on Facebook this morning. He said that when people tell you to evacuate because a hurricane is coming, you don't have a debate about whether the government should be telling you what to do. People they move. And there's really no difference here. The COVID is like a hurricane. And as I've often described it, it's like this hurricane where the eye is sitting on top of us and we really don't understand yet what's on the other side of it. But somehow the face mask became sort of this political, thing. And it's really unfortunate because it's one of the best tools we've got. All the professionals I talked to, from Lee Bond to Kent Nico to Dr. Nicholas Conger, the infectious disease doctor over at Memorial, they all say exactly the same thing. And they're using these tools. They're using these tools at the hospital. And what's really interesting to note is the number of transmissions that have gone from patients to hospital employees is virtually zero. That most of the hospital employees that have gotten it got it at home or somewhere else. So, the proof is there. We just need to use the tool. So how are you guys wrestling with that in the city of Gulfport?
Well, we've had a requirement in place for anybody coming into city buildings that must be wearing a mask. All our employees who interface with the public must wear a mask. But with the governor's order that has come through, the executive order, I know that all the mayors that we talk on a regular basis, we're evaluating that. And some of us are probably going to take it a little step further and give greater clarification. So, for example, he talks about retail. Retail, by definition, includes bars and restaurants. And so there's some clarification there. Fortunately, many of the restaurants that we're seeing, they're already requiring it. So look, our wait staff has had to have it for weeks, if not months already. And if you're going to come in, we just need to make sure we're protecting our folks from you and you from our folks. It's kind of like Paula was talking earlier today. When you go into the hospital, even before COVID, who's wearing masks? The doctors and the nurses. And they're not wearing masks so they don't catch what you got. To the degree it's making sure that you don't get what it is. It's kind of both ways.
Yes.
But I describe wearing a mask as a selfless act. That you're trying to make sure that you're not being contagious to anybody else. And part of what I just did, touching this, it's that surface contact, touching surfaces after where we aspirate is part of the problem. And the masks prevent us from doing that or help inhibit it. So it's
Billy, so why don't we do this? Is Mayor Billy Hughes from the city of Gulfport. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation and talk about basically institutionalizing a requirement that the governor has put in place. And we'll talk more about that when we come back from the break. Again, Billy Hughes, and we'll see you after this.
Subscribe for free to the Coast View podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fl.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors. Here, the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have 2 risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Well, back to Coast View. We have Mayor Billy Hughes from the city of Gulfport with us today. Hey, I've got a couple of questions about restaurants and maybe even some retail establishments. But before we do that, very clearly state what the governor's order says.
Well, basically, we're still analyzing it, but basically, if you are out in public, if you go into a retail operation, that you must be wearing a mask. And retail is pretty broad. It covers everything from your retail stores. I think, again, we said by definition, restaurants and bars are retail too. The thing is, if we don't stop this spike, we're probably going to have to look at this lockdown that nobody wants to go back into. And I think it's untenable for everybody. We don't like having this discussion. And so it's going to, if people say, well, how are you going to enforce it? That is the question. That's the difficult part. But I hate the fact that we're even having to talk about how you're going to enforce it, because most people that have any sense understand how this can get a lot worse. And we should be, on an individual basis, taking this upon ourselves. And businesses need to insist that, look, you're just not coming in until that time. And businesses, as private entities, have the right to determine and say who can come in, who cannot. And I don't think it's too much to ask. It's just wear a mask. Come on.
Billy, I've had we'll end it here, but I know a couple of restaurants. I know a salon. I know a bar, and people. I guess since I'm in this role, people want to tattle on a lot of businesses that aren't conforming. But the truth is, there are still those that are being incredibly hard-headed about this, and they're putting the public at risk. I don't know what we can do to get the point across to them.
Well, some of when we had the shelter at home, safer at home, they went to great means to try to evade and get around those. And heck, if they'd have put that much effort into just trying to comply and make things safe for their customers and the public, it'd probably have been a lot easier.
Yeah.
And instead, but there's some folks who are just downright belligerent about it, and we get calls say, look, I'm complying. I believe in it. I think we ought to do it. I'm in it for the long haul to make sure we can stay open. But I've got a competitor that is just basically saying the heck with it. So our law enforcement officers, our code enforcement folks shouldn't be put in a position to have to say, look, come on, this here. I can tell you this, that our police, with our executive order, will be issuing one today in Gulfport as well, to clarify some of the things in the governor's statement. But our police, they will have the authority if folks trespass or violate these orders, but they're also going to be equipped with masks. Say, look, here, just put this on.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to do that as well. So to provide folks the opportunity. Well, I don't have a mask. Well, you do now. Come on, let's work on it.
Well, people say often when we talk about the mask situation, they come back and they say, what do you want us to do? Just close down the economy? And what we're saying is we're trying to keep from closing the economy. For God's sake, please listen to this. And the other thing, Linda Hornsby mentioned to me that when visitors come in, she's from the Hotel Motel Association, as you well know. She says that visitors come in and they see that some local businesses are not following the ordinance, and it concerns them. And so, one of the things, we have got to be perceived as a safe place to visit. It's critical to our economy, and hopefully everybody will kind of, come along with us. Hey, real quick, mention the Mask Up Mississippi effort.
So one thing to follow up on that, what you just said, is we've always been about, from a tourism standpoint, from making our community, our coastal community, setting an example. And this falls into that category as well. Mask Up Mississippi is just an awareness initiative from the Hospital Association, the State Medical Association, and the Mississippi Municipal Association to just make folks aware that it's just a smart thing to do. I've heard one thing that don't be a COVIDiot. That's a funny term, but just be smart. Nobody's an idiot. It's just, but we can't put each other at risk. So Mask Up Mississippi is just kind of saying, look, folks, it's that important to do. There's a lot of solidarity. So let's, again, set that example statewide.
So aquarium's getting closer and closer to opening.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I was in there this past weekend, just kind of checking things out. There is a hope for date around Labor Day weekend. They've got water in the tanks now. The grounds are being landscaped. The finishing touches are putting on it. So it's very exciting to see. I think the public is going to absolutely love it. I'm hopeful that we can hit that date. But the COVID still continues to affect some of these things. And I don't know that it may inhibit that. But that's what we're hoping for. They've got the biologic material in it to make it so it'll get right so they can put the actual fish in the water. So we're hoping to see a lot of these things come together before the end of summer.
Wow, that would be awesome. I know that it's such a difficult situation here. This too shall pass, and the transformational nature of this project will bear out. It's just taking longer to pull it all together, and that's just the nature of the beast that we're dealing with. Hopefully, Labor Day weekend would be a great time to make a statement. And let's pray. Chipper McDermott and I talked about this yesterday, but you know what all the experts are saying about the hurricane season. Let's just hope that they're wrong and no one has to deal with it. Can you imagine a hurricane hitting any community in this COVID environment?
Well, 2020 has been a pretty sucky year so far for all of us, and it wouldn't surprise me, but we never want one of those to come. But if they do, we've got some on-the-job training. We know how to respond and prepare for that. So we'll deal with what comes, but we got enough on our plate right now for sure.
I saw where you guys got a couple of Mississippi Municipal League Excellence Awards. Tell me about that.
Well, I've said all along, we've got a fantastic team, and everybody understands our mission to differentiate Gulfport and hopefully be a benefit to the coast in general. But the aquarium project has been something that we started when I came into office in 2013, and it has been just a methodical progress and a lot of effort by a lot of people. But you mentioned transformational. We knew it could be. We've seen what aquariums have done in other communities, but even in COVID, we believe that we're seeing a lot of stimulus, a lot of activity from that. We've already seen restaurants and other businesses come to the city, but our code office, our licensing in urban planning, urban development, they are as busy as they've ever been. And we think part of the catalyst there is the aquarium coming in. So the overall award was for the aquarium effort that's bringing something that should really highlight all of Mississippi. It's brown water to blue water. It's just so cool. And the other is our police force. Chief Papania is retiring this year. We hate that because he provided such great leadership. And you talk about community outreach, and he's touched every aspect of challenges and been so responsive. But he really took on the homeless issue as far as finding a way so we can have a hub and a more of a unification effort for these great nonprofits, from Goodwill to Salvation Army to our homeless coalition, to bring them all together to really address this issue. And there is no easy fix or cure, but at least they're talking about it and working towards it. So that particular effort, on top of all just the great policing that they're doing, got them recognized with the Public Safety Award. So we're very, very proud of our city employees.
I think the world of Leonard. I've known him for a long, long time. He's just a good person. But his ability to reach out, his awareness of how important communication can be to, all communities. And he's really led by example. Man.
Dynamic leader. Yeah. Good. Just, he's good from the core.
Really amazing. Hey, listen, we only got a couple of seconds left, but real quick, what's the status of the budget?
We are analyzing. Dr. Kelly put together what we call a process action team internally to give the different divisions in the city some ownership on what decisions we make and how it goes forward. So we had talked about possible furloughs and layoffs. We believe we'll be able to make it to the end of the fiscal year without having to implement those. But once the stimulus monies fall off, once the unemployment benefits go off at the end of this month, and we see a true picture of who's working, who's not, and how our economy is going, we're very seriously considering some restructuring of our departmental makeup, our framework in the city, and some curtailing of expenditures, capital projects, and those sorts of things, just to make sure that we can go through it. We don't want to lay people off or have that impact, but the numbers may dictate it. So there's going to be a lot of head scratching and pencil sharpening between now and into September.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, too, that there's still a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty about what COVID's going to bring to us. Hopefully we can, now that we're in this kind of mode of needing to flatten the curve again, we don't have another uptick that it could really have a devastating impact on the economy if everyone doesn't chip in and do their part to limit the spread. You can't emphasize that enough, can you?
We cannot. It's pretty fragile at this point. And look, I get the frustration. I want to go out and hang with my friends and do all the things we're seeing, but it's just irresponsible at this point. And it comes back to being personally responsible. We don't want to be telling people how to live their lives, but the fact of the matter is, if we want to live a good life down here on the coast, we need to make sure that we're putting personal habits into place that are going to let us get back to normal sooner. And this is like I said, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon.
So we're about done now, but we got less than a minute to go. But tell me about the card counter.
Well, we were able to kind of help convince our friends in the legislature to put the incentive back in place for our movie production. For a while there, a few years back, we had movies coming down here all the time. Well, the card counter is one that had come earlier in the year. They had a crew member get COVID. They all bailed and they went back home, and now they're coming back to do it. Well, they picked the absolute hottest time of the year to do it. I tell folks all the time, we got 2 seasons, hot and really hot. And there were crews from Utah and California that said, man, how do y'all breathe? Mm-hmm. But they had some real A-list actors and actresses there, and so a lot of excitement about it. So I'm hopeful it's a very successful movie and showcases our coast in a great fashion.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe among them. So anyway, Mayor, it's been terrific to catch up with you. We'll be back to you in about 3 or 4 weeks to see where you are. And good luck with the hurricane season. Good luck with getting the aquarium back open. And we'll see you soon.
Maybe we can do a remote from the aquarium. How about it?
Yeah, I think we are actually. So look forward to it, buddy. Take care.
Take care.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
Whether you're a Rebel, a Bulldog, a Golden Eagle, or just a sports fan, SuperTalk Mississippi has got a podcast for you. For you. Sports Talk Mississippi, The Rebel Report, Thunder and Lightning, the SuperTalk Eagle Hour, and The Borky Show are all now available for you. And it's all free. Get them all on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for SuperTalk on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam, as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. Norbert, Elvis.
And I want to tell you about Presley. He had 2 different voices. He would sit and talk to me in a very calm, low voice. And we were at Stack's one night, and we were having lunch. We always had lunch at midnight because he was nocturnal. We sat there and we have our sandwiches, and at 1 o'clock, he looked up. He said, "Hey, Putt, come on, it's time for me to go beat Elvis." And he stood up, in a much deeper voice, he put on his macho voice. "Hey, fellas, it's 1 o'clock. Let's get cracking, okay?"
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, Amazon Alexa, and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to frequently touch surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
If a muckety-muck wants you to hear what they gotta say, they come here first and sit down with Gallo and JT. This is ground zero for all Mississippi muckety mucks. SuperTalk Mississippi. Watch your favorite SuperTalk shows in HD. Just go to supertalktv.com. Ever wonder what goes on in the studio during the shows? Now you can watch what happens in HD. SuperTalk TV, streaming now on supertalktv.com.
We serve on the front lines, fighting an invisible enemy and caring for our communities with courage and compassion. The COVID-19 crisis has challenged us like never before. Now, the men and women of America's hospitals and health systems are counting on Congress and the administration to stand with us as we stand ready to care for you in every way, every day.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk Mississippi.
The house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90 Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. That was a terrific conversation with Mayor Billy Hughes from the city of Gulfport. What a great leader he is. I really enjoy spending time with him. He's down to earth, likes to enjoy what he does, and he's been a great leader through some very challenging times. So now let's kind of turn the page and turn toward Jeremy English, the senator from District 51, coastal Mississippi representative. I'm really excited about having this opportunity to talk to you, Jeremy, because I've followed you. I really like the way you hit the ground running. We'll talk a little bit about sort of the political dimension of what you're doing, but I really want to hear more about where you come from and stuff like that. So good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Ricky. Yeah, good to be on. And I appreciate Mayor Hughes and all he said. He's a very good guy over there. So
yeah,
we're lucky to have him.
He said of you that you're accessible, and that that's really important. When you're a politician, that you're there for people to be able to share their concerns with and whatever. You're part of the Senate, and he knows the role of senator really well. He was there for many years and became a very significant leader. Got close to becoming lieutenant governor, actually. So, yeah, he's in fact, one of the things we talked about is how he used that statewide political race to gain a perspective that ultimately helps him be a better mayor. So that's awesome to see. But let's do this real quick. You've been described as a common sense guy. And I had Wayne Rodolphus on the show last week, and he said, he's the superintendent of schools for those who don't know, for Pascal Gaucher. And he said that when you were in the school system there, you were known as a leader. And that, people are not surprised that you've become a senator and that you're contributing in the way that you are. I'm curious, where did that desire come from? What is it that causes you to want to, present yourself to public life?
Yeah, well, Ricky, I think, essentially, there's a difference between a politician and a public servant. And a public servant is somebody that really wants to see their community made better and be the best that it can be, and everyone have the opportunities that they deserve to have. And so that's how I've always been. And I appreciate the comments from Mr. Rodolphus. He was a great vice principal when I was there. Hank Bounds was principal, and I tell you, those two guys were good leaders to come up under and to watch how they handle things. But I've been asked where where I got my start in politics and issues and being involved. And I have to say that my grandfather owned a little small barber shop over in Goche, Mississippi, and I would sit there and drink cherry Coke while the guys drank coffee and just debated what was going on in the world. And I was, just a little fella at the time. And then my grandmother had a beauty shop just right next door. So I would go next door and really find out what was wrong in the world and all the solutions to what was going on. But since then, coming up and just being able to talk with people and understand people on a level that I know that I can has been very helpful. I grew up in Jackson County, went to public school my whole life, and have really been blessed with a lot of opportunities. But I had to work hard to get where I am, and I understand there's a lot of people out doing the same thing, and I just want to make sure that they have the opportunity that they deserve.
What's your real job in life?
Yep. So I'm an attorney. I work for a law firm that's out of Lawrenceville, Georgia. It's called Speed, Seda, Martin, Trivett, and Stubley. So I don't know if I wanted to put my name in there or not. I might have to buy a new door to put another name on there. But they're a great firm. I do workers' comp defense work for them. Before that, I worked with Marco Walker here in Mississippi and have done that for almost 10 years now. And before that, I did a little insurance defense work over in Gulfport.
Well, good. Tell me about your family.
Yeah. Oh, man, my family is they're the joy of my life. My wife, Melissa, so next April in 2021 will be 20 years that she and I have been together. We met when we were 18 years old, and, it was one of those old sappy stories of love at first sight, and dated all through college and through law school. We got married back in 2008, and man, she's a wonderful person. I couldn't do anything that I'm doing now without her being my partner in life. And we have 2 children. We have Levi, who is turning 10 here in a couple weeks, and Grace is 6. And she's a firecracker. I told Melissa a while ago that she's been staying at home with me while I'm working, and it's almost like having a Labrador puppy around with the things that she could find and get into. But she's great. And Levi, he's into fishing now. So he's going fishing across the street. We live here close to Fort Bayou, and it's every few minutes I'm turning around and having to look at my phone at a picture of a fish he's sending me from over there fishing. So he's and a baseball player. I'm telling you, it's having kids and being married is just the most fantastic thing. It's the best part of my life.
Yeah, I agree. I have 3 kids, and now I have 3 grandkids. But, I did it all, fishing and hunting and coaching soccer and baseball and all the things you do. You immerse yourselves in their lives, and then it will come back to you. It will come back to you in ways you don't even fully appreciate right now. By the way, I love the name Levi. What a cool name.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Melissa's grandfather's name. So we were looking through. I'm big into genealogy and ancestry and a big history fan in general. But when we found out we were having a boy, I got to looking through the names. I told Melissa, I said, I think that your grandfather, who's also a big fisherman over in Moss Point, by the way, I never got to meet the gentleman, but he was, from what the stories I've been told, he was a great guy, and I'm proud to have Levi named after him.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, what makes you happy?
Yeah, life, really, Ricky. I mean, there's so much that we have to be happy about. Again, my kids and my family are really probably what make me the most happy. I have had the opportunity to coach Levi before I won this election. I coached baseball every spring, and we would do all-stars all the way through the summer. And just being involved in league baseball and having kids on my team that they might not have been the best kids and been able to make like a travel ball team, but we would take them and just seeing the joy of that game in those kids' eyes, really, I love that. That brings me joy and makes me happy. Watching Grace grow and be more and more like her mother is something that's really, really a joy to me. But yeah, like you say, you like to hunt and fish, and I'm right there with you. I love the outdoors. I think we live in the best place on earth here in South Mississippi. I couldn't imagine living or raising my kids anywhere else. So we have a lot to be happy about.
Yeah, I would. If you were to ask me that question, I would have answered it very much the same way you did. I think it's a perspective. It's a perspective on how you choose to live your life. Even after Katrina, we found happy moments, even though it was such a difficult time. And the COVID environment, it's given us an opportunity to reconnect with family and spend more time with family in ways we didn't before. So with every single challenge that life gives you, there's incredible things to learn. There's happiness in adversity. It's just that it has to do with how you choose to look at it. I'm sure you look at it the same way, huh?
That's right. Yeah, and being an attorney probably has conditioned me a little better to handle arguments and adversarial positions, and then be able to walk away and shake hands and be friends afterwards. And really the outlook that people have of you, you wear it on your face. So I try to keep a smile and let people know that I'm happy to be there, happy to know them, and happy to be doing what I'm doing. And I think that's been helpful in my role.
Well, as a publisher, I was a publisher for like 16 years of my career, publisher of a newspaper, and there are some issues some positions we took that made people mad, and some other positions that we took that made people happy. And but I always felt like it prepared me well to be able to stand by what I believed in. And people would say, "Man, are you losing sleep over that? That was a tough decision." I would say, to be honest with you, no. I mean, all the sleep I might have lost was prior to me making that stand, making sure that I've done my homework, making sure that I understood the issue, making sure that I was going to, when I decided to take a position, that I was going to vote my conviction. And once I got to that point, it was really easy for me to go to bed at night, go home to my family, and know that I made the best decision, that was a well-informed decision. That's the way you are in your current role, isn't it? I mean, being a lawyer prepared you well to be able to say, I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to do what I think is right. And I'll take my licks if I have to. But the reality is I'm going to sleep good at night. Is that where you are?
It is. It very much is. And look, a lot of my decisions, really every decision that I make, carries a lot of weight, especially in the Senate. And a lot of prayer goes into it. There were mornings where I would get up and I would have a big vote coming, and I would walk into my living room. I'd be ready to walk out the door, and I would just sit down and say a prayer, right? A 5 or 10 minute prayer, and just make sure that I was where I needed to be, that I'd made up my mind, and I needed to just go forward and do what I know what is right. And once you're right, once you make up your mind, you feel better about it.
So let's do this. We're coming to the end of this segment, but this is Senator Jeremy English. We're just getting to know him better. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the crazy, polarized political world that we live in today. And we'll talk a little bit about the Senate as well. So when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Jeremy English.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
A compassionate young man who became a dinner companion for a stranger makes today's Dean's List. Lisa Mealander and her family had been eating at the Eaton Park in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania, when she noticed how her server was interacting with a senior patron. The server, Dylan Teetle, had dropped to one knee so he could give his full attention to the gentleman. Lisa wrote on Facebook, the man apologized for not hearing well, and he talked about how he lost his hearing during the war. He was 91 years old with many stories to tell, and Dylan patiently listened, giving him his full attention. He also helped the man figure out a meal from the menu before putting the order into the kitchen. Lisa tried to flag Dylan down so she could offer to pay for the man's meal. Dylan said someone else had already taken care of the check. Before leaving her table, Lisa snapped pictures of Dylan chatting with the senior and published them to Facebook, where they have been since shared thousands of times. Thank you, Dylan, for your kindness, and Lisa for sharing this story with all of us. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. Staying informed is a full-time job, even more so during an election year. That's why SuperTalk is here. With Fox News, News Mississippi, and the Super Talkers, you'll go inside the campaigns, and we'll separate what's real from what's not to bring you the latest information that matters. From now until you go into the voting booth on November 3rd, your election headquarters is Super Talk, Mississippi. Available on the Super Talk app and at supertalk.fm. From the Gallo Radio Show archives.
In the House, Mike Hurst.
When I started at the end of 2017, sadly, our office had gotten so low during the last administration. I think in FY16, we prosecuted 11 illegal immigration cases, 11, which is embarrassing. First year I was there, we had jumped almost 700% to 77 prosecutions. And, Paul, that number I think is going to increase very much more this year. We are continuing to see illegal immigration impact crime around the state. I'll give you a perfect example. About a month ago, we prosecuted an illegal alien who had brought 9 kilos of heroin and 1 kilo of fentanyl through our state. Now, to give your listeners an idea of what 2.2 pounds of fentanyl will do, that will wipe out 1 million people, Paul. That'll wipe out 1/3 of our state.
This has been another Gallo Radio Show audio archive. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk, Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
We have Senator Jerry England with us. I don't know why. There's sometimes a name, there's something about a name. I looked at England and I said English like a couple of times, and I'm not sure why. But anyway, I'll have to get that out of my psyche. He's a bright. Go ahead, Jeremy. Go ahead.
That's fine. I was going to say, some of my votes, I might want people looking after Jeremy English rather than coming looking for Jeremy England. So it might have helped me out some, Ricky.
No, I really appreciate you. And as you know, I mean, we've communicated on Facebook, and I've watched you closely, and I really enjoyed getting to know you better. But it's just sometimes there's a psyche thing that you see. You're looking at a name that literally says England, and you say English, and it just for some reason it feels right, even though it's wrong. I don't know why that is, but somebody will figure that out someday. So look, let's define what your district is, and then we'll talk a little bit about politics. But District 51 is what?
Yeah, so District 51 is primarily northern part of Jackson County, mainly north of I-10. So the communities of East Central, Van Cleve, and I've got a little bit of Ocean Springs, Pascagoula, Goche, and I live in St. Martin. So I'm a proud member over here of the St. Martin community. And so that's really where we are. It's a large district. It covers both sides of the river. So it was, when we were on the campaign trail, we put some miles down.
Yeah. Well, look, I noticed that you posted this. I thought this was a great place to start as we think about politics and something like how a face mask in this COVID environment can be politicized. But you posted this quote from Mark Twain that says, "It's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled." That's a really good one, isn't it? Talk to me about that.
It is. Yeah, it is. So, we live in a world now where information is available, and that's both good and bad, because not all information is correct, and it's not the information you need to look. And I think so many times people will go on a wild Google search and they don't realize it, but they're doing confirmation bias. They're looking for the answer that they want rather than the correct answer. And it's important to me, and the reason I try to share as much as I do is I want the correct information to be available, because once you've got your mind wrapped around the wrong idea, it's going to be a lot tougher for you to unwind that and get back to a place where you got real truthful information in front of you rather than something that you just found on the internet.
Well, I spent my time in media, and it was always, before we had the internet, before we had social media, it was always easy for people to sort of align with a point of view that they prescribed to. But today, it's extremely easy. And the problem with the way that information is shared through social media is that a lot of the information that is shared is wrong. It is truly the definition of fake news. And people don't look for validation. They just say, in terms of its credibility, they just say, there's a point of view that I agree with, or there's some facts someone shared that I agree with, when in fact it's not true. But they're not looking. That's what I miss about media, and even on the national scale, there's so much noise. That the problem with media today is that that journalism is bias driven, and we can't really get to the real truth. It's a sad situation we find ourselves in, isn't it?
It is, and there used to be a few so-called wedge issues that would get in between and drive people to their corners. I think of people in a boxing ring. They go to their corners and they're just throwing things at each other, and it seems now everything is a wedge issue, and everybody's wanting to go to their corners and get angry, and we've got to find a way to get back to that middle of the mat and come to some agreements and really make sure we're getting the most truthful and most accurate information, or else we're going to make bad decisions.
Well, it's our political scene has become so polarized. We're defined by the polarized ends. And what I like about your approach, as I mentioned to you offline, was that you're not letting the polarized ends define you. You're coming into this role as a conservative, but someone who thinks for himself. That's not necessarily going to toe it this way because someone said you needed to. And I think a lot of people are going to appreciate that about you, Jeremy, as you continue to do your role. I know you hope that's the case, because that's who you are, isn't it?
It is, and I appreciate that, Ricky. And I like to tell people, look, I'm a very conservative Republican, and so my compass points that way. But I think of the line out of that great movie Lincoln, where he was talking about, his compass is true north, but it doesn't show you how to get around the swamps and the bogs and the valleys and the different obstacles you have to get through. And so we'll get there, but you know what? We've got to work together to get to that point. And realistically, we all have the same goals in mind. We just have a different way about how we want to get there.
Yeah, you've been described, as I mentioned at the beginning, shows someone with common sense. But what you posted about, if the government told you to evacuate when a Category 3, Category 5 hurricane was coming, you wouldn't sit there and question whether they should tell you what to do. You just get in your car and get the heck out of Dodge. But they tell you to put a face mask on, and suddenly we've got a problem. Anyway, quick response to that, and we're running out of time, unfortunately.
Yeah, look, it's not as bad of a deal. Nobody wants to make somebody do something in government, not in Mississippi anyways. We're doing this, Governor Reeves is doing this for everyone's health, and he's doing this based on good information.
Yes, he is. Hey, listen, what we're going to do when we come back, we'll come back to you in about 3 or 4 weeks, and I want to get into the nuts and bolts of the Senate. Tough decisions you have to make along the way. But I don't want to go. We don't have enough time to do that today. But I wanted today to be was just sort of a getting to know you session. And I thought we did a terrific job of that. So I really appreciate you spending time with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Ricky. Look, this job as Senator for District 51 is an honor of my life. I'm so proud to serve the great people of this district.
So this is Senator Jeremy England. Jeremy England. I'll not make that mistake again, but it's been a real pleasure, man. I think the world of you, and I think you've done a great job of leading, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Ricky, I really appreciate it very much.
Okay, buddy.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Twitter @SuperTalk MSGC.